Good afternoon, everyone. I am Alan Harris. I'm the emergency manager here in Seminole County. I am not Aaron Funk. Aaron Funk was supposed to be with you today, our logistics section chief for the Emergency Operations Center. Unfortunately, he is out in the field dealing with some issues today, so I will be with you as we continue our virtual Hurricane Expo as we prepare for hurricane season 2020. Unfortunately, it is important to talk about COVID as we talk about hurricane season, and over the last 4 days we have seen a sharp increase in the number of COVID positive cases here in Seminole County. Right now we have seen just over 80 additional new cases over the last 5 days. That's quite an increase, some of the largest increase that we've seen since we started taking numbers back in April. So that's why Aaron is, of course, busy today, as he is out at a testing site. We do have some pop-up testing sites that are now available, one in Winter Springs at the Winter Springs Senior Center, and then we will be having one every Thursday at the Florida Department of Health, and also we have some pop-up test sites in various communities next Saturday at Lake Mary Elementary School on the 20th, and then on the 24th down at near 434 and 436 in the city of Altamont Springs, we will have one at Spring Lake Elementary School. All of those are on our website, prepareseminole.org. As well as all kinds of information related to COVID-19 as well as the Hurricane Expo. When you go to prepareseminole.org, you can click on Hurricane Expo on the dashboard at the very top, and it will take you to an area where you can watch multiple videos on how to prepare for the upcoming hurricane season. Today, Aaron was going to be with you to talk a little bit about what you can do around the home, so I'll talk to you a little bit about that, and then insurance. So first, around the home, of course, now is the time for the honey-do lists around the home. So cleaning up around the homes, cleaning the gutters, things like that. Of course, over the last week or so, it's very interesting. Our ex-fire chief, our new fire chief hasn't, and I haven't talked about this, but our ex-fire chief and I used to have a laugh that every time that we would issue a burn order, not more than 3 days later, we would suddenly just start getting rain. Well, again, that happened. We issued a burn ban order a few weeks ago, and then it has suddenly started raining a lot. Well, with those rains, of course, the gutters can get clogged as leaves start to fall off the trees and things like that. So we want to check our gutters certainly before hurricane season, or as hurricane season is upon us right now. Check those gutters out, make sure that they're clean of any type of debris so that nothing backs up into the home, that you don't start to have any mildew or things like that if the water starts to back up into the roof area. Also around the home, tree trimming is important. If branches are over the trees, for me, there was a palm tree that is kind of close to my house. It's one of those queen palms, so there's multiple branches that come up. So I had to cut that back a little bit because it was right up there next to the roof. So as you walk around the home, just look and see if there's anything that's up next to your roof, something that would hit the side of the roof real hard. And of course, we want to cut that back. You don't want any damage to the roof as the branches hit there when the winds start to get upwards over 75 miles an hour as a hurricane approaches. Fence lines, that's also important this time of year, so go looking around at your fence. If there's any repairs to be done around your fence. We have a pretty good fence in the backyard for the puppies when we let them out back and they can play in the backyard. But we did notice that after the strong storms came through on Saturday and Sunday, a couple of those got loose. So it is my job this weekend to make sure that they're nailed down, that I've done a little bit of fence repair around the house. So that's something that you're going to want to do as well. If you have a pool, you're going to want to, of course, check around the pool. Anything that could become a missile during a hurricane, just identify those right now, and then you're going to want to remove those, of course, prior to a hurricane approaching. Just so it's important to take stock in what's around the house and know what you're going to have to bring in. Oftentimes, people with patio furniture, they just throw the patio furniture right inside the pool. Of course, that keeps the the patio furniture from flying around. It also it puts it in the chlorine. And I don't have a pool at the house, but people have said that it helps to clean the pool furniture. So a lot of people do that. So that may be a helpful hint for those that have pools. Certainly, if you have any items, like I was mentioning, that could become missiles, you're going to want to bring those in and bring them into your garage, bring them inside so they don't become a missile during a hurricane. Since we're talking about garages, prior to, there are expensive things to do and there are less expensive things to do. So you can certainly get a hurricane-proof garage door, or resistant garage door. So you can certainly go to that level. And if that's something that you want to do, garages are often a very easy point of entry for hurricanes. So you want to protect your garage as best possible. I don't have a hurricane-resistant garage door. Maybe one day I'll be able to get that. It's just not in the budget at this particular moment in time. But for those of you that can't afford it, that may be an option for you. For those of you like me that can't afford it, then look at ways that you may be able to brace the garage door as a tropical system comes in. Ways that you can do that: you can get a car up next to it. So I normally park the car right up to the garage door, minimize the amount of wind impact that can make impact with that garage door, and protect that garage door as best possible. Since we're talking about the inside of the house being a garage, let's go further inside the house. Surge protectors inside of your home is an excellent option. It's an excellent option even now, not even in the hurricane season, but it's an excellent option even right now. The storms that went through on Saturday and Sunday that I was mentioning, a lot of lightning strikes, even here in Seminole County. We experienced some storm damage. One of the divisions here in the Office of Emergency Management is radio telecommunication. So that's the tower sites. So that's one of the divisions that I oversee. And one of our tower sites got hit by lightning, and which can cause some serious damage to equipment. And that's, of course, where our first responders communicate, is through those tower sites. So we were quick with Motorola and our teams to get out there and to repair it as quickly as possible. Inside of your home, you also have valuable electronics that you want to protect. So having surge protectors and things like that will protect your electronics. Since we're talking about electronics, let's talk about generators. So again, there are multiple levels of comfort, and there's multiple levels of how you can get prepared. So if you can afford a full house generator, that's a wonderful option. I am not at that level. I cannot go, and I can't currently afford a full generator to my entire house, but certainly some people can, and if you can, that may be an option for you. So get a couple price quotes from an electrical company and see if a full house generator is good for you. For me, I got a smaller generator. So with the smaller generators, of course, we have to pull that generator out, and then we have to put it somewhere in the yard. We want to make sure it's protected. Do not use the generators in the garage. Do not use the generators anywhere near the house. The safe practice is at least 5 feet from the home. I place mine a little further, and I place it a little further because that's where there is a huge tree that I can chain it up and things like that right to the tree in the backyard, in the fenced area of the backyard. My generator is a relatively small generator. It runs the refrigerator, it runs a couple lights, and it runs a window air conditioning unit. So we go camping during a hurricane, and we'll go into that one room that is air conditioned, turned on that window unit, and it actually is quite comfortable in that room. Very hot and sticky in the rest of the house, but in that room, very comfortable. Food is protected with the refrigerator and the freezer that is still operational. It also will run a television, so we can play movies and things like that. So everybody is comfortable and is best comfortable as you can be after a storm. We know that most of the time power will be out after a hurricane. So whether you can afford the full house generator or a smaller generator, or maybe you can just get a battery powered radio whatever is in your price range, there are different things that you can do. Again, though, the portable generators, we always want to make sure the portable generators are away from the home. We had a lot of carbon monoxide poisoning after Hurricanes Charlie, Francis, Jean, Tropical Storm Faye, Hurricanes Matthew and Irma. All of those hurricanes I went through here with you all in Seminole County, for those that have been around for a little while. So I've experienced all of those, and I can tell you through all of those experiences, I can tell you the one of the number one calls after a disaster or hurricane is carbon monoxide poisoning. So we want to make sure that you are safe and that you're protected, so make sure that generator is far away. As you are checking around the house and clearing out things and stuff like that, since we're talking about safety, chainsaws. If you decide that you want to purchase a chainsaw, there are classes for that at Home Depot, Lowe's, other hardware stores. You do not want to learn how to use a chainsaw after the hurricane. Unfortunately, that did occur at Hurricane Michael, and I remember a few times in Bay County, we were called out. I was deployed up there a couple of years ago for that hurricane, and we were called out a couple times for individuals that had never used a chainsaw, had purchased one right before Hurricane Michael made its approach, and of course it slipped, it hurt them. The nearest hospital were miles and miles and miles away. Most of the individuals in Bay County, Panama City, we had to airlift if it was a critical injury. So some of those individuals were airlifted. So the chainsaw, don't want to learn about how to use a chainsaw after the storm. You want to do it before. Is there a question?
We have a question from Mindy. She's asking, is there a website that shows you what can run and for how long on a generator?
So that's an excellent question. So you're going to want to know what the size of your generator is. Also look at what you want to put onto that generator. So what I did is I looked at the refrigerator. I looked at the window unit of the that I was going to use. The lights and things like that, and I added all that up, and then I went to try to find the right generator, and I found the perfect generator. It was sitting there like it was supposed to be mine at Ace when I walked in. So I said, I think this is my generator. It was the perfect wattage. It was exactly, it was a little bit over what I had needed, and that's exactly what I want. Is I wanted a little bit over, so I know that I can put on maybe an extra light or something like that, or if something fluctuates, I want to make sure that it can handle that. So those are the things. So when you look around the house, well, I'd like to have these lights. I'd like to have this refrigerator and the freezer. If you have a standalone another freezer. The one thing that we ask that you don't do is plug the generator into any type of electrical socket into the home, thinking that you're going to power the whole home. And if you decide that that is something that you want to do, and you know a little bit about electricity, please make sure that the main is turned off to the house so that you don't backfeed that and hurt one of our electrical providers that are out trying to fix the lines and things like that. We don't want to hurt a lineman that's trying to restore your power. So, there are safe ways of connecting generators to homes, and you can certainly do that. But just make sure that you understand how to turn off the main, and make sure that you turn that off if you are to power the entire home using a generator. Shutter systems. So again, there are expensive ways to shutter a home, and then a less expensive way to shutter a home. The only way not to shutter a home is duct tape, and it used to be the thing all the time. You'd see a hurricane approaching, and all of this duct tape that was on the homes. I think that one of the old stories was if the glass breaks, at least it'll break connected together. Absolutely not true. Ask anyone that's had their glass broken and put some duct tape on it. It just makes it a sticky, nasty mess. So there are obviously the expensive options, which are the full shutter systems with electrical power that lowers the shutters and things like that. And if you can afford that, man, that's a great option. That's a wonderful thing that you could possibly do. For me, plywood, marine plywood, cut to the size of the windows. That's what I do. And then there's other options, like certainly you can just get hurricane resistant windows, and there's some some great ways to do that, and right now there's some ways that you can get rebates and things like that from those window providers. So contact a couple window providers, see if they'll give you some quotes, and hopefully you can find a really good deal on one of those.
So
Question?
Going back to generators, Monica is asking, can I use a generator if I live in an apartment?
Sure. Well, so you're going to want to talk to your apartment complex. So it depends on the structure of the apartment. So if it is an apartment that's like a one-story and you have a back area. So I used to live in a little apartment complex next to University of Florida when I was going to school there, and it was all first floor, and there was a little patio outside and a little area back, and I could have probably put the generator far enough away from the home that it would have been safe. I don't know if I would have been able to or not. I'll have to think about that a little bit, but if your apartment complex allows that, and if you can place it far enough away, but most apartment complexes these days are 3 stories or even multiple levels, and in that case probably not. You'll definitely want to talk to your apartment manager or owner. You don't want to fire up a generator without their approval. So I would have had to have talked to that individual in Gainesville when I was there, but there was probably enough room to have easily put a generator in that patio area. Now that I think about it, it's probably an 8 or 9 foot extension there in the back. So, but you don't find those one-story apartments much anymore.
So if you're on a second story and you wanted to put the generator out on the balcony.
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah, so if you have a generator, you want to be 5-6 feet away from the home, so that places it off the balcony and back down on the ground. And I am pretty certain that number one, it's not real safe. Number two, unfortunately, with generators, if you can't really secure them, there is theft during this time. So during Hurricane Irma, we experienced some theft of our own generators. So we had generators that were powering traffic signals, and people were out going and stealing our generators from the traffic signal. So that was an issue, certainly, and that was just something that happened. So. But we caught some of those people, so.
And now they have a location device.
Yeah, now we've put GPS trackers on our generators. We've learned, unfortunately, the hard way. We learned the hard way that people can come by and try to steal even government generators that are powering traffic signals. We've been pretty blessed in Seminole County. We haven't lost a lot of lives in a hurricane. We did during Matthew, and it was wind debris, someone outside, and there was another case in Irma. We lost a few folks during the storm, but after the storm is really a challenge. We have lost individuals for T-bone accidents, collisions, and that is why we issue curfews. We issue curfews because power lines are down. It is unsafe to drive around. It is it's just not safe. The traffic signals are messed up. So things like that. So it's just best people not steal our generators, but unfortunately they did. So we had to put some GPS devices on them. So it's also important when we talk about around the home and safety around the home and things like that, is we want to make sure that financially we're secure around the home as well. So insurance. So you're going to want to check your insurance policy and make sure that the insurance policy is enough to rebuild the home. So when you look at the policy, you're going to want to check that. Most hurricane and windstorm policies will do that, but you just want to verify that, especially if you have a mortgage. It will probably do that. But if you own your house outright, you just want to check that. Normally the bank will make sure of it if it's a mortgage insurance, but if you own your home full outright, then you're going to want to check that. Check your deductible and see what your deductible is, and make sure that if you can. Again, I understand this is a very challenging time, and here I am talking about money a lot, and we're in COVID-19, and people have lost their job and been furloughed and stuff like that. But if you want to check your deductible regardless and see what that deductible will look like. FEMA sometimes provide assistance. The Small Business Administration, even though it's called the Small Business Administration, it does provide loans to homeowners, so you can have low interest loans to help with deductibles and things like that. FEMA sometimes will come in and help with deductibles. The county will come in sometimes and be able to help with deductibles if you income qualify. So you want to check those deductibles. Just make sure that if you can, have a financial reserve for the deductible. Again, if you can, that may be something you'll want to do. If you rent, you certainly want to have renter's insurance. And I had renter's insurance as long as I rented an apartment. I rented a home for a little while, but I always had renter's insurance. Renter's insurance is extremely cheap. It's so important. We just had a 3-alarm fire about 3 weeks ago. 8 units were affected. 60-something units were affected in that storm, or I'm sorry, in that fire. And apartment complex was very interesting. I had not heard of this before, but the apartment complex actually required the renters to have renter insurance. Everybody had, we said, well, what's going to be the need here? And there was very little need. They found a place to stay for that night, which was important, but all of their belongings were insured. And that is because the apartment complex had required their renters to have renter insurance. So, if your apartment complex, of course, requires that, then you already have it. But if it doesn't require that, or if you rent a home or you rent a duplex or something like that, you would definitely want to look at renter's insurance. The homeowner's insurance policy for the homeowner will protect the home itself or the apartment complex or the building itself, but not the contents inside.
Sure. So as you're talking about protecting your home, Amber is curious, what category hurricane should you board up your home?
So excellent. So category 1, you're going to want to start to look at category 1. So 75 miles an hour or more. Now, I say that depending on the windows, right? So if you have hurricane-resistant windows, so it's important to know what type of window you have. So if you have hurricane-resistant windows, then you may not need to do that. If you have I don't have hurricane-resistant windows, so that's why my option was the boarding of the homes. Mine's an older home. It was built in the 60s. It's got a brand new roof after Hurricane Charlie, but the windows are still older windows. So it's important for me because I have older windows to board up right before the storm. So it just depends on, and we're looking at getting some new windows, and I think that's going to be our next hurricane purchase. A couple of years ago, we purchased the generator. We got a brand new, pretty heavy-duty window air condition last year. So each year I try to get something to build up my hurricane cash so I can be safe during the hurricane season.
Well, we're talking about
Sure.
Boarding up. You haven't mentioned much about flooding and sandbagging. Is that something you want to touch on?
Yes, that's actually my next topic. So after renter's insurance was flood insurance. So let's talk about floods a little bit. I currently do not live in I live in an X zone, so not a flood zone, which requires flood insurance. I still have flood insurance, though. I have flood insurance because I think it's important to have flood insurance, because if something happens, somehow there's localized flooding, I want to protect my home. Flood insurance for those that are not in the floodplain is very cheap. I think I pay $300 to cover the entire house all year long. So it's not real expensive to have flood insurance for the house if you live in an X zone. If you live in an AE or another type of flood zone, you will, of course, have to have flood insurance if you have a mortgage. And it will be a little bit more expensive. If you own outright, it's important still to have flood insurance more than ever. And we unfortunately learned that in Tropical Storm Faye, the worst flood event here in Seminole County. A lot of people owned their home outright, did not have flood insurance, and when they asked FEMA for for assistance, they did not get it. FEMA sometimes will provide assistance for the first time. So if you did get assistance during 2010, I think it was. No, it was 8, during Tropical Storm Faye, that's a one-time thing. So FEMA says, yeah, we'll give you money this year. Yeah, you didn't know. Now you know. You live in a flood zone, so you need to have flood insurance. So the next year, if someone gets flooded, chances are FEMA's not going to bail them out again. So you can look at SBA, a Small Business Administration loan or something like that, but chances of FEMA coming in and bailing individuals out is unlikely. So flood insurance, very, very important. If you have if you live in a flood-prone area, you certainly want to look at getting some sandbags. Seminole County will make sandbags available prior to a storm this year because of COVID. We'll start that operation a little bit earlier than we've ever done before. We will be doing social distancing, things like that, to make sure that it is safe. It will be BYOS, bring your own shovel. We used to have shovels there. The county shovels were all there, and you could kind of grab a shovel and fill up your sandbags and things like that. We won't have that this year because of COVID-19. We don't want a whole bunch of people sharing shovels and then those individuals getting sick. And the last thing that we want is people sick during a tropical event. That just seems like it would be torture. So we're going to, just if you live in a flood-prone area and you're going to count on our sandbags, just know that we will open that up a little bit early for you, and that will be social distancing. So there may be a little bit of time before you get up to the sand pile, where before you could just all come and gather around the sand pile real quick together. Last thing I wanted to talk about, and I know I'm getting close to that time, is condos. So if you live in a condo, you want to check with your condominium complex, make sure that what they cover, and then find out what you need to cover on your own. Each condo complex is going to be slightly different, so just check their insurance coverage. You can work with the condo management company to find out what their insurance covers, and then what you need to cover as well. I know Aaron is disappointed that he couldn't be here today. I'm glad I was able to fill in. So I don't know if I'll be here the Thursday or Friday. I may make him to my event, but certainly Catherine will be here. Catherine will be here tomorrow to talk about special needs and seniors and how to prepare for hurricanes if you have a medical need, oxygen, require electricity to run medical devices, things like that, what's in a special needs shelter, etc. And then the last day, Friday, will be sheltering, and we'll be talking about general population sheltering. We'll be talking about pet-friendly sheltering, those types of activities. I was supposed to be back with you on Friday. I may be back with you, or I may have Aaron present that too. He actually teaches the shelter class, so he'd be a great person to talk to about that. So with that, I'll sign off. I want to thank you all so much for participating in our virtual Hurricane Expo. We hope you have a safe hurricane season.